Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be bringing you guys a player breakdown of Washington football team's undrafted free agent running back Jarrett Patterson and why I think he can be a hidden gem for the Washington football team. I'll also show some of his best highlights from Buffalo, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that, and I'll talk about his chances of making the Washington football team and much more. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. So let's get right into the video. Alright, so let's start off with some quick background information on Jarrett Patterson before we get into, some of his strengths and weaknesses and, some of his highlights. So, as you guys all know, the Washington football team signed Jarrett Patterson as an undrafted free agent after he went undrafted. A lot of people had him mocked in the 5th or 6th round, but he did fall. He's 21 years old. Played his college football at Buffalo, is about 5'8", 195 pounds. Well, he's probably a little bit shorter than 5'8". He, was raised around 15 miles outside of DC. In high school, he played running back and DB. And some of his measurables, he had a 4.58 40-yard dash. So not blazing speed, but not super slow. 19 bench press reps, and he had a 30-inch vertical, and all those measurements were from his pro day at Buffalo. Okay, so before we get into, some of his highlights, let's talk about his production and some of his strengths and weaknesses. So, he was just an absolute monster at Buffalo. In 2019, as a freshman, played in 13 games, had over 1,000 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry, and had 7 catches for 62 yards. The next year took a big jump, still 13 games, but had a lot more carries, 312 carries for 1,800 yards, up the yards per carry a little bit to 5.8, and 19 touchdowns. Also had 13 catches for 209 yards, 16 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown. Over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Absolutely insane sophomore year. And in his junior year, keep in mind, he only played 6 games, and he had 141 carries for 1,072 yards, 7.6 yards per carry, and 19 touchdowns. So if he would have played 13 games, imagine those numbers. 40 rushing touchdowns, or he was on pace for over 40 rushing touchdowns and like 2,200 rushing yards. Didn't get any receiving yards that season, but just was an absolute beast in those 6 games. But obviously, because of the pandemic, they played a limited amount of games. But that production from him in college is just absolutely insane. And you see the yards per carry got better every single season, which you absolutely love to see. And the touchdowns pretty much went up every year. You went from 14 to 19, and then 19 in only 6 games in his junior year. So the production is absolutely outstanding. And a lot of teams had him as a fit, or a lot of people had him, as a 5th or 6th rounder, or at least projected to be a 5th or 6th rounder, and he went as an undrafted free agent, and that's the only undrafted free agent that the Washington football team ended up signing. And one thing I will say, you might look at, the receiving yards and say, well, he's not really much of a third down back. That's not really because of him. That's really just because of Buffalo and how they used him. You see right here, his sophomore year, they used him a little bit in the passing game, and he thrived right there, averaging 16 yards per catch. And, so far from what we've seen in minicamp and OTAs, he's been involved a lot in the passing game, a lot of these like slip screens. And, I think he's going to be involved in the run game with Washington. Let's look, at some of his strengths and weaknesses. You just watch him, and he's just a bowling ball knocking down these defenders. It's just absolutely insane. So, he has a great, and I'm going to read from here, he has a great work ethic, and I think he was a team captain at Buffalo. He played with his twin brother who is a linebacker. Doesn't really fumble the ball, which is great. I mean, someone like him who's an undrafted free agent fighting to make the team, you cannot fumble, and that's great. Great that he doesn't really have a fumbling issue. Is built compact and very, very powerful. He is extremely powerful. Like I said, like a bowling ball, he keeps his feet moving and ready throughout his carry. Arm tackles need not apply. It's very, very, very hard to bring him down, and he's not a bad blocker, especially in pass protection, in my opinion. You guys can read some of the other strengths and weaknesses, but I mean, I don't think there's really another back in this draft class besides maybe Najee Harris that has similar numbers to Patterson. And you got, obviously, keep in mind that Patterson played at lower level obviously than Najee Harris did at the SEC, but still I really, really like Jarrett Patterson. Some of the negatives that we'll go through right here: he had great production, but a lot of that came against worse defenses. You guys see he's not extremely athletic. Running backs don't necessarily need to be very athletic, but he doesn't have great speed. He does have solid strength though. You can see that in his games, and he had like 20 bench press reps or 19. You guys see right here, can be a bit of a one-speed runner. Feet look a little unsure while bouncing downhill. You guys see some of the other things right here, but a lot of that can be fixed at the next level. And this last point right here, hasn't been much of a pass catching option, and that is true especially in his freshman and junior seasons. But I think Washington will use him a little bit better than Buffalo did. Buffalo didn't really need to use him because he was just such a beast in the run game. I mean, when a guy's giving you 7.6 yards per carry and 19 touchdowns, are you really going to want to be giving him so many passes? But so far, like I said, in OTAs and in minicamp, they've been using him a lot in the passing game, and he's probably going to be a solid third down back for him, or for the Washington football team, if he does indeed make the roster. So those are some of the strengths and weaknesses of Jarrett Patterson's game. Now let's get into some highlights from his time at Buffalo, and then after that we'll come back and talk about his chances of making the team and what I think his role will be in the offense. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed those highlights. Now let's get into if I think Jarrett Patterson will make the Washington football team's 53-man roster, and this is definitely a tough one, and I think a lot of fans really think that Peyton Barber is a lock to make this roster as the third running back on the team, and he definitely can make the roster, and he has a good chance to make the roster. But what I will say is that I feel like Peyton Barber's skill set, the best, the things that he's best at, obviously, is at the goal line and getting that 1-2 yards on 3rd and 1. 4th and 1. If you need to get 1 yard, Peyton Barber is your guy, but I feel like Gibson can do a lot of what Peyton Barber can do. He was great as a goal line back last year, and he was solid at getting 1 or 2 yards if you really did need him. So Peyton Barber, though, was great. And if they keep 4 running backs, I think then Peyton Barber, of course, will be a lock to make the roster if we keep 4. But if we keep 3, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if Jarrett Patterson did make it over him if he has a great training camp and a great preseason, because let's say Gibson does go down, you can't really rely on Peyton Barber to get more than 6-7 carries in a game. It's just not really something you want to do. Jarrett Patterson, on the other hand, he could be a guy that gets you 10, 12, 14 carries if someone like Gibson were to go down. And same thing with J.D. McKissic. He's good for 5 to 9 carries in a game, but you don't really want to give him 12, 15 plus in a game. That's what you want Gibson for, and I think that Jarrett Patterson could be that guy if needed. But if he does make the team and everyone's healthy, I do see him as a 3rd down back. He's not bad in pass protection, solid as a pass catcher, in my opinion at least, and I think he's just a big play guy. I think if they need a big play, they'll put him in, whether if it's a big play in the passing game or running game. I think they'll put him in those situations because they do need to develop someone in case they do not re-sign J.D. McKissic after the season, which I do think will be the case. So they need to develop him. So I think Jarrett Patterson at the very least is going to make the practice squad if he goes unclaimed, but I have a feeling that he will end up making the roster as the 4th running back on the team. But we will see. If they keep 4, I think Jarrett Patterson will make it. If they keep 3, it's going to be a very, very interesting battle between Jarrett Patterson and Peyton Barber. So let me know down below in the comments section, how many running backs do you think the Washington football team will keep, and who will those running backs be? I really like this signing by the Washington football team, their undrafted free agent, Jarrett Patterson. I think he's going to have a chance to be one of the best undrafted free agents in this class, and I think in a couple years he'll be a solid contributor for the Washington football team. He could be their 2nd running back if J.D. McKissic leaves. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and turn on those post notifications so you never miss a video. Peace.